Well, you mentioned solar as being part of what we need to look at. The solar stocks, if you've been watching them the last couple of days, have gotten taken out at the knees. Is solar ready? Are we ready for this? And is solar ready to provide what the market seems to think it can?
I think solar's close. And if you look at a corridor, a huge corridor wind, you can take off from Sweetwater, Texas, move north to the Canadian border, and that is all prospective for wind. You can take a corridor west from Sweetwater, Texas, and go to California, and then you can put wind and solar both in there. But it's got to be solved. Somebody's got to step up, look at this, and decide how we're going to manage it. Because right now you just have people get up and say, well, we're going to put a windfall profits tax on. We're going to do biodiesel. You have one of my guys said we're going to have a plug-in hybrid. I mean, you know, this is silly talk. All of it is. Somebody got to sit down and look at it and decide what we're going to do, because it is huge. It is going to be extremely important that we solve the energy problem for America.
Mr. Pickens, the big problem with alternative energy is that even at these high prices of oil, it takes all kinds of government subsidies and all that to make alternative energy as cheap as oil. So what is so wrong with us buying up everyone else's oil elsewhere in the world while prices are cheap enough to where alternative energy just isn't economical? What's wrong with that?
Well, you like the transfer of a $500 billion a year out of the country?
Well, if I'm getting a good value for it, and if what I'm buying is cheaper than the alternatives to try to burn up food so I can turn it into fuel.
Well, now I'm answering yes and no quicker than you are. Yes, you like that. I mean, that's okay. If you do, that's your position on energy. You can do the wind energy, and it's about as cheap as the generation of electricity with natural gas. And I like that idea. That can be done. We know it is. That's doable right now. If you go to Sweetwater, Texas, you've got a model for what's going on in this country on wind. They have the largest wind farm in the United States at Sweetwater, Texas. It's about 1,000 megawatts. It's worth the trip. It's a destination point to go see what could be done through the Great Plains. And if you look at what it did for Sweetwater, it revitalized the town. It was 12,000, went down to 10,000, back up to 12,000. The economy is great in Sweetwater. Okay, you can flip-flop that up all the way to the Canadian border and revitalize the Great Plains of the United States. I mean, it would be fabulous for building the economy in the central part of the United States.
Boone, you know how politicians work, so, you know, just...
Work? That's an oxymoron.
So, you know, the chances of anything happening, you know, I don't know what they are, but we got Mike Jackson on the show tomorrow. Mike is, I don't think he's necessarily a leftward thinking guy. He thinks
big tax and spender, you mean?
Yeah, he's not a big tax and spender. He thinks that to get the auto companies, to get the U.S. consumer to migrate to smaller cars to save gas, so we need to have a huge gas tax. That would actually, I mean, maybe it makes sense. Maybe that's the only thing that works to migrate us to those little, you know, Jetson-type cars they drive in Europe, those little compacts. So we do that, and then we use some of that gas tax money. Not only does it migrate us to smaller cars, and we use a lot less oil, but maybe we use some of the tax money to try and do something with alternative energy. Does that make sense?
I'm not opposed. If you remember, over a year ago, I said a gasoline tax is maybe the way to go. And you're going to have to kill demand. That's where you have to come from. If you only have 85 million barrels supply, and that's all it's going to be, you're going to have to someplace kill demand. And the only way I see you kill demand is with price. I'm not trying to make any money off of running oil prices up. That doesn't have anything to do with it. What you've got to do, and if you look at gasoline prices in Europe, what are you looking at? $6 or $7 a gallon.
Right.
Okay, and here you're looking at $3 a gallon. Okay, and
great wine and cheese, though.
Okay, but look at the total picture, all right? Back off, look at it. We're using 25% of the 85 million barrels every day. Okay, 25% goes to America. All right, what does that mean? That means that we're doing it with 5% of the people. Less than 5% of the people are using 25% of the energy. Well, somehow that seems to be unfair to me.
Yeah. Well, speaking of killing demand, if you say we're going to come off $15, right, on crude in the second quarter, and then rebound to 100 later in the year. Is that a comment on what the American consumer is going to be doing and how they're going to be behaving?
Well, I mean, if I'm right on it, that, you know, I'm not going to be right forever, but I've been doing a pretty good job for the last year or two, that, yeah, I think that, you know, what you do is the consumer today is comfortable with $3 gasoline. But I say that, and I still think that we're seeing a pullback in demand, a small pullback now on gasoline. Go ahead.
Doesn't sound like you're calling, though, for a full-blown recession, at least here in the U.S.
I'm not an economist, and for me to talk about a recession, you know, it's because somebody I'm listening to my own economist, and then I become a parrot. All I do is get up and say what he said.
Right.
But like a journalist.
Pardon me?
Like a journalist. That's what we do.
Yeah, I know. Wait a minute. Don't start putting me in with a journalist.
Yeah, me neither.
But remember, I'm a geologist.
Hey, Boone, you talked about how you've been very right for the last year or two, and you have. How's the fund doing? How's your fund been doing over, let's say, the last 6 months or so?
Well, okay, let me give you 07. 07 was a great year. We were up, before fees, we were up 32%. And this year, and we opened up last year, 07, January was a real, we took it on the chin. Then we went 11-0 for the rest of the year. We see, when we look at it like a football season. We've got 12 months, 12 games. So we finished last year 11-1, and we were up 32%.
Well, what about after fees? Don't give me the before fee. Was it zero after fees? I mean, give me an idea.
No, we're 20%. We get,
right.
Yeah, we get 20. We're 2 and 20.
All right.
We're standard for the street. Okay, now you asked me about this year. January opened up just like last January. We're down 5% in January this year, and we're still working in February. We don't release in the middle of the month what we did, but we're down 5% for January.
What about nuclear, Boone? Is it just everybody says no, we can't do it because it takes too long? Doesn't that mean we should start?
That's right. You don't ever have a tree if you don't get it in the ground, I can tell you that. So get it going, get the nuclear started, and we've got to have it. But we need to get people in Washington that recognize the problem and sit down and figure out how we're going to manage it. Because $500 billion a year, that's a disaster for this country.
All right, well, Boone, I want to thank you very much for coming on with us. We look forward to having you back here in the studio with us next time, too. But thank you very much for joining us today, Mr. Pickens. And by the way, I'll promise right now, the guys will both wear OSU ties the next time that you're on. Oklahoma State.
Go Buckeyes.
I don't want anybody to pull in there with Ohio State tie.
Yeah, the guys are ready with Oklahoma State. They'll be wearing the orange.
All right, Cowboys.
Yeah,
we'll
Cowboys. Go Cowboys. And Boone, thank you so much for coming on today.
Okay, I've missed all of you.
We miss you too. Boone Pickens, and he's going to join us next time he's in New York, right here on set.